the Ryan McDonalds that are in the room. Nice to see all of you. That was my mistake in the link that I sent out. So if you see your name is actually listed as Ryan McDonald, that's me. So don't worry about that. We'll get better at this as we run through our series of discussions. But I'd like to start by welcoming the presenters and the participants to the first in a series of discussions on writing centers in the MENA region. I mean, when we're thinking back to all the way back to March, it was a pretty remarkable environment that we all had to change our not only teaching but also student support methods and practice so that we could fit into this new normal that we're all expected to do. And oftentimes we had to do it just overnight. And I think all of us on the board and the members, we all felt really overwhelmed. And some of us, we still feel overwhelmed. And so we were thinking that now that it's summertime, we have a bit of an opportunity to kind of share what practice we did in the spring, some things that worked well for us, and some things that are still challenges that we can iron out coming up in the fall. So today, because it's the first one, we thought we would focus on 5 of the board members, and each of them come from slightly different contexts, which we're hoping will provide enough variety for the various members to find something that would work well for them. We're going to provide some information about the center specifically, and then how they responded to everything that was happening. Just as a practical matter, I think everyone should be muted right from the beginning, and then we'll stay muted throughout unless we're presenting. And then at the very end, there'll be about 20 minutes or so for questions and comments. So during the presentations, though, if you have any questions, you can enter them into the chat box, and then myself or one of the other board members can answer those for you kind of on the fly if we can. But then at the very end, if you have something that you want to discuss, share, ask a question about, there should be a little button that you can use on the bottom of the screen. That's a reaction, and you can click there and give a little thumbs up, and that should give you that should show up for us, and then we'll unmute you and you can ask away. So I think we're ready to get started, and the first person to share is going to be Maymuna. So Maymuna, whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you very much, Ryan. I'm Maymuna Al-Khalil. I'm an assistant professor at King Saud University in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I helped found the Center for Writing in English in 2012, and I have been directing it ever since. We are a female established writing center, and to this day, it's still a female-only writing center. And we were doing face-to-face consultations on site in our writing center this entire time. We had never done online consulting, synchronous online consulting before. We had done a little bit of online support that was asynchronous in the past, but classes were suspended all of a sudden on March 9th, and we had to transition within the span of 48 hours to online-only consultations. Fortunately, we had a standing subscription to WC Online, but we had never used any of the features pertaining to the online option. We were mainly using that system for scheduling and for keeping our data intact all in one place. So we were uploading reports on that system. Students were scheduling and canceling appointments on that system, but that was pretty much how we were using it. On the night of the 9th of March, we basically went into the manual. We, myself and the administrators at the Writing Center, and we understood the features and what the built-in infrastructure can allow us to do. Worked on an instruction sheet for our consultants, because even our consultants were not used to this mode. None of us were, honestly, and we did a very quick crash course on how to access as a consultant. And we also did another instruction sheet for the students, sent out a mass email to everybody, and went back to work by Wednesday. So on March 11th, we were back on track, and we honored all the appointments that were already in place, and we students were able to add appointments, and all students had to do was basically switch from face-to-face to online, and that would automatically enable the features that were there. So that was our experience at King Saud University in Riyadh. It was very sudden, and we were very nervous. And we just took it day by day and worked with all the technical difficulties one by one. And by within the first few couple of weeks, because we were booked solid until the very end of the semester, which was towards the end of April. So we still had 2 more months of operation. We just managed somehow to deal with several of our technical issues. And we got better at it with every passing day. So that's basically how we dealt with it at the Center for Writing in English.
Maymuna, if you could, would you mind just saying a couple of words on the way the students might have reacted to moving from the face-to-face sessions to the online sessions, and if that was generally considered a success by the students, or if they had any kind of preference?
Yeah, we were very nervous about that, honestly, and we weren't sure how they would react. But WC Online, if it's an online option, the box would suddenly turn red. And so within an hour or so of us sending that email, that page turned red. And we were very happy to see that, because apparently students were a little nervous about their existing appointments, and they had missed their appointments on Monday and Tuesday, which were the 2 days we were trying to figure it out. And so we connected with all of those students who did not have their appointments on time and rescheduled them. And we were happy to see that we did not have to make any changes, as students went ahead and changed the status of their appointments themselves. They were, we were very happily surprised to see the enthusiasm. There was a lot of hesitance as to how to use the actual virtual room. We didn't know how to use it ourselves. We learned together, basically, and we did have some technical difficulties, and then we figured out that actually from the Writing Center could go into the session remotely, and if they had full access, and adjust some of the issues. We learned that we have to close all our tabs in order to maximize the features, the built-in features in WC Online. All of that was just accumulated experience, one disruption at a time.
Thank you very much. And I think now that Maymuna has just shared a little bit, we're going to move on to Ken, who is currently at NYU Abu Dhabi. So Ken, whenever you're ready.
All right, well, thank you everyone, and thank you for joining this session. It's lovely to see so many Ryan McDonalds in here. And I'm happy to have this conversation with all of you. So first, a little bit about myself. I'm Ken Nielsen. I'm the director of the Writing Center here at NYU Abu Dhabi, which you can see part of the building, I guess, in sort of reflected in the painting behind me. And I'm the associate director of the writing program, and also a senior lecturer of writing and literature and creative writing here at NYU Abu Dhabi. So a little bit about our student body. NYU Abu Dhabi has students from over 100 different countries, and they speak, as many languages as that, which I think is one of our unique features and also one of our challenges as a writing center and as a program. But it's a lovely challenge, right? To think about multilingualism and what does it mean in terms of running a writing center and a writing program, and how can we work with students through and with multilingualism in that way. My writing center sees about 1,200 consultations a year, and that's from a student body of merely, almost that amount. So we see a lot of students actually. And then within the first year writing seminar, we see another 1,000 students because our writing instructors are embedded into our first year writing seminar classes. So they don't necessarily go into the writing center, but they're being sort of groomed in terms of what does one-to-one tutorial mean. In terms of how we managed this transition, we went online within 24 hours for the Writing Center. And as Maymuna was just saying, we did it through, they're still booking their appointments through My WC Online, but then they get a Zoom link from the consultant that they're seeing. And so they're meeting over Zoom, or actually in some cases through Google Hangouts, because some students do not have the internet capacity to run Zoom at home. And I think, and I hope that this is something that we can also talk about. How do we make sure that we are not privileging students who have unlimited access to internet, because some of our students don't. And so how do we work asynchronously with those? Fortunately, we were able to do that because we run a program called the Summer Scholars Program every summer. And it's a distance learning program where writing instructors are working with students over the summer. They have 10 meetings. So we were used to doing distance learning already, which I think really helped us sort of shift from the in-person writing center consultation to an online mode of communicating with each other. So I think we were really lucky in that way that we had already done it before, and we could just sort of change and say, okay, so what do we do now? But we still use My WC Online. Students make appointments, and we still write client report forms in My WC Online, so that we have, I have a sense of what is happening in those consultations. We've also, I think, particularly in the first year writing seminars, not so much in the writing center, started working more asynchronously and sort of figuring out how to communicate with students through Google Docs, through Word, or whatever platform that the students are using. But I think we're also learning that that takes a lot of training in terms of how to comment on student work. And that I think that's really important. And finally, I just want to say that we also created a walk-in function in the Writing Center. So there's a standing Zoom link that students have that they can use if they just want a walk-in consultation. It hasn't really been utilized very much, but I'm hoping that since we are at NYU Abu Dhabi, we are online all of the fall, that we can advertise that more to the students so that they know that we are here. And then, I mean, finally, but one question that I have that I think it's important for all of us to think about, and that I'm happy to talk about, is also the sort of consultants' well-being, right? I mean, they're all at home. They're all trying to do this work from where they are, as we all are. But how do we make sure, as directors or as people engaged in writing centers, that everybody is staying well and healthy? So, did that do it, Ryan? Is there anything I need to add, or?
I mean, I think that's really great, Ken. That's a great overview. And I think those issues, those two main issues that you're raising, will be particularly important, I think, across all writing centers in the region. Just that issue of tech literacy and access, and how do we provide various platforms for students to engage with us when different data requirements affect students differently, and different tech literacies affect students quite differently. And so it requires kind of a balancing act between how much we can actually do with training and quality control. And it ties right into that second point that you made about the comfort level of the tutors and their mental well-being, and how much they can be reasonably asked to do. So I think we're going to try to explore those themes, this session, and then in some subsequent sessions as well. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now I think we're going to stay in the UAE, but we're going to move over to Elizabeth Whitehouse, who's at UAEU. So Lizzie, whenever you're ready.
Hi Ryan, hi everybody. It's great to see such a large group of people coming together to talk about our work in writing centres at the moment. So I'll tell you a little bit about how we handled the situation at the United Arab Emirates University Writing Centre. So I've been running that centre for quite a few years now. And the UAEU is just a bit of background about the institution. It's the UAE's national university. We're multidisciplinary. We have about 12,000 students. The large majority are female and national as well. So until mid-March, we were operating our writing centre in a similar way to MENA's. We were offering face-to-face consultations, and we were using WC Online as an administrative tool for scheduling, booking, record keeping. And we talked about offering services online, but with most students coming onto campus every day, I guess we didn't really have enough of a push to move online, although it is something that we had been talking about before. But then we really got a push that we weren't expecting. And like everybody, we had a very short amount of time to shift online. So we were busy running face-to-face consultations. We were running writing workshops. We were running student engagement activities, a competition. So when the announcement came that we had to move online, my first priority was to make sure that students could still access our consultation service, being the core of Writing Centre work. So we were a little bit unsure how well WC Online software was going to serve us, because the UAE restricts a lot of video conferencing software. So we trialed it off campus, we trialed it on campus, and we were quite confident it was going to work okay. The trial was good. So we our next concern was to make sure that students knew that we were still going to be available to help them, and that they would know how to connect with us. So we created 2 videos that we broadcast to all students and to all faculty members. We knew that faculty members would be a very important way of getting students on board with our online service as well. So we created one video that was just a general announcement, reassuring students that we were still available, that they could still get help, and showing them screencasting how to register on WC Online, how to navigate the booking system, and just talking it through for students who weren't already familiar with the system. And then we made another video which was about what to do to get ready for a session, and the technicalities of joining a session. So step-by-step screencast of what to do from the student's perspective. We got all this ready, we broadcast the videos, we were excited that we had some bookings, and then very soon it became clear that the WC Online consultation room wasn't going to be working. There was terrible interference. Something had happened between the trial and the implementation. So we had to scramble, and we shifted all the communication with students, other than we went back to using WC Online just for booking, and the communication with students went onto MS Teams. So then we had to create a video to show students how to download MS Teams, how to join a video session, how to chat. So for us, we seem to be spending a lot of time looking at the practicalities. And then once, thankfully, the consultation service was up and running again, we were sort of then put in the position thinking, okay, how is this working from the pedagogical point of view? So we successfully offered synchronous and asynchronous consultations from March through to July. And we also had a lot of writing workshops that were scheduled. And we decided that instead of offering live virtual workshops, we would pre-record them. So we created instructional videos on several topics and made those available to students through email broadcasts, and also through we have a Blackboard site full of writing resources for students. So rather than trying to replicate the live workshop scenario, we decided that to make the resources accessible to the most number of students, we would send them out as self-access videos, and that worked well. And we were almost getting into a flipped learning scenario where students were watching the videos and then booking a consultation with us to kind of get feedback on how well they were using what they learnt in the sessions. So we were pleasantly surprised with how well the online service worked out, but we are aware that for some students it's not ideal. I think for students who are less linguistically proficient, I think they have difficulty navigating the software. And we, for the full semester, we're certainly looking at like student bodies that we missed, student needs that we missed out, and trying to up our game a little bit for the next academic year. So I think that's it from me.
Thanks a lot, Elizabeth. It's really interesting to hear you talk about making videos to promote the different types of services that are provided. And I know we were talking about this a little bit a few weeks ago in a board meeting, just that now is a really interesting time to reintroduce ourselves not only to the students, but to the faculty and staff that are out there, because so much of what we try to do is define ourselves as a service and what we do and what we don't do. And it seems like now is a time when writing programs are in more need than ever of the types of services we provide. So it seems like it's just a great opportunity in a lot of ways to redefine who we are and what we do.
Yes, and I think it was quite successful in profile raising, particularly the videos that we sent out. I think a lot of people found out more about it's not just a place to go to get your writing fixed, right? It's writing centres are learning centres, and they can help students in numerous different ways. So I think that was a real unanticipated benefit for us. We got a lot of good feedback from sending out instructional resources.
Great, thank you very much. And now we're going to leave the UAE and head off to Qatar. And Sahar is joining us from Texas A&M, the Qatar branch, or the Qatar campus. And Sahar, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Ryan. Hi, everyone. My name is Sahar Mirai, and I work at Texas A&M at Qatar. I'm part of our Center for Teaching and Learning. So we don't only have a writing center, but we also do a lot of other things, including peer tutoring, especially for our STEM subjects. And then we also have a supplemental instruction program that we were just piloting in spring 2020. So for us, it was difficult. We did half of the semester up until mid-March. Students were just coming back from their spring break, and then we had to shift everything online, which we were able to do also within 3 days, and then we were up and running. Similar to what my colleagues already mentioned, our center also uses WC Online for booking appointments, so we decided we wanted to keep that. We evaluated a couple of different options where we even consulted with, I'm not sure if Kelly Wilson is here. I remember while we were still allowed to be on campus, we ran over to their building, just trying to figure out how we can make this work. Eventually, we decided WC Online, that function for our writing center would not work because of all the different components that we also offer with the peer tutoring and the SI, the supplemental instruction. That's why we decided that we would keep WC Online as a scheduling software, and then have actually the sessions conducted via Zoom, since our institution has a license for all of our students and all of our staff and faculty. Now that, I think that put a lot of pressure on our tutors, just trying to figure out the software, trying to get up to speed. I remember we had a couple of training sessions just to get the students familiar with the platform, because it was the first time they had to learn how to use it for their classes. They had to learn how to use it now to help other students with the software itself and with the transition. It was a very difficult time. But again, our students, I think they're so tech savvy, they were able to pick it up, and they did a fantastic job in regard to that. I do want to mention that now, this was back in spring. Since then, in the summer, we were able to actually figure out how to problem solve, or I know that there have been a lot of questions about how to actually integrate Zoom with WC Online, and how to make that whole appointment booking smoother. So we were actually able to figure out how to set up a recurring appointment and actually embed that link with the tutor profiles, which I think has made it a lot easier for students in the summer, especially, to just book their appointments and get the link automatically. It reduced a lot of the extra work our tutors had to do with just scheduling individual appointments for each of their appointments, and then canceling, and all the different platforms that they're using. So besides Zoom, a lot of our tutors actually used also different platforms to support the sessions, including GoBoard and Desmos. And our writing consultants in particular, and I'm also going to give them a shout out because both of them are here, Beth Corlang and Shauna Leu. They have done such a fantastic job in adapting to this transition. So in regards to writing, the portion of our writing center, we offer one-to-one appointments, but we also offer group appointments. Our students work on group assignments as well. They have a lot of technical reports. So in that process, we figured out that for one-on-one appointments, a lot of students, they're very comfortable using Word, that they could just share their screen. We could, well, Zoom allows you to request access. So it would be really nice being able to navigate the document with them live. But for group projects, that really didn't work out very well. So we actually use Google Docs for that, which turned out actually quite nice, because we can see all the writers putting in their comments, and it becomes very, very collaborative, which was a wonderful shift, but also a big adaptation. What else do I want to mention a little bit about the lessons that we've learned, or the silver linings about moving to online, because that was something we didn't really, well, I think at that point hadn't really considered. So one of the things that I'm checking my notes to make sure that I'm not forgetting anything. So I think the really bright side to moving things online is we got to see a lot of new clientele, which was surprising. Our students are very, very private. So for some of them, they were not comfortable coming up into our space because it just felt so exposing to them. So being able to do that from home and at some kind of flexible alternative hours, I was very, very grateful that I got to see some new faces. There's also a very, very different comfort level that I've noticed in my appointments with the students when they can be a little bit more open at home because they're in their space. And a lot of times our conversations, they pick up a lot quicker, which I found was really, really interesting. And again, I think it's the need for privacy, or they don't want to expose certain thoughts, or they're afraid to be overheard. So I thought that was great benefit to moving our services online. What else do I want to mention? I also want to mention, and I don't know how the rest of you feel, or if you've encountered this. Again, it goes back to the privacy, and we had a lot of discussions in our tutor training about having the camera on or off during those sessions, and how difficult it is if the tutee doesn't put on their camera, because a lot of our cues are picked up by their facial expressions, or did they really understand, or do they still have a question? So doing that has been very, very challenging for a lot of our tutors. And I want to say I have a hard time with it too. It's difficult to be looking at the screen, looking at yourself mirrored on that screen, or just looking at that blank screen and just really trying to hear, to hear and make sure, yes, that student is still following along, or was there a time lag? Did they not hear me? Am I moving too fast? Am I moving too slow? So I'm learning a lot of new things. Yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it here. One last takeaway though is with this shift and with this, I'm going to say, discovered comfort level of our students and openness to actually engage in these online sessions, I think it's definitely something that we will continue offering even if we go back to our campus. I don't think the online sessions will ever replace the face-to-face interactions, but I think they will supplement, and we would actually be able to help more students that way. Brian, is that all that you needed from me?
No, I think that's a really nice comprehensive overview, and you guys have done such a remarkable job with really tough situation. I think it's interesting to think about the way in which tutors are often having all of these multiple roles, and we often say tutors are not just tutors, they're also teachers, they're also guidance counselors, they're also stress therapists. They always exist in all of these different roles. And to Ken's point, I think it's worth thinking about, particularly now with the types of students that they're seeing that are in many ways kind of emotionally stressed out with their new reality, trying to solve all of these problems, that I think the mental well-being of all the parties involved is something to be kind of cognizant of, for sure.
I'm so glad you cued me with this, because I forgot I actually wanted to share a picture. So since we moved online, you can see this beautiful yellow chair. So I was telling my boss this morning that this chair, so this is a picture of my office. A lot of students came 2 weeks after we moved online, and they're like, Miss Sahar, we miss your chair, we miss the yellow chair, because they would come in there and this is where a lot of our conversations would start. So I had to go back one of those weeks. I just took the picture because like you said, it's that emotional support that they're missing, and they miss the daily casual interactions. So that's one area that we've been really hardly we really try hard to come up with a couple of solutions about how to recreate those casual interactions, the interactions of them moving in front of our center back and forth, kind of coming up with the courage to ask for help, ask a question. So yeah, that we're still figuring it out, but I'm open to suggestions.
Thanks so much, Sahar. And for our last presenter, we have Paula. She's going to share a little bit about what's going on at the American University of Beirut, AUB. Is that right, Paula? Oh, you've got to unmute yourself, Paula.
Yeah, actually that's a sister university, and I can see Amy Zenger here, who is the Writing Center director there. It's the Lebanese American University, Ryan. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, Paula. Yeah, sorry about that. The Lebanese American University. So yeah, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Oftentimes it's confused, but don't worry. Our situation was slightly different from the rest. I'm sure Amy Zenger from the AUB Writing Center also had a similar experience. Due to the uprising that began in October in the country, that prevented students from being able to commute to campus. However, not all of them. A number of them were not able to make it. In addition to a number of tutors, I should also tell you that the LAU Writing Center has 2 locations, one in Beirut and one north of Beirut in Byblos for the 2 campuses. So, for instance, there was one tutor who was living in the north of the country who could not come to the Byblos campus. And at the same time, there were students who could not come due to roadblocks or some demonstrations. I still remember one time I was tutoring in the center and I could hear the chants at the upper gate of students not wanting to attend classes and simply revolting. During that period of time, which was irregular, we had our face-to-face sessions, but we had to think of catering to those who could not commute to campus. So we came up with a poster and we sent an email via the Dean of Students office announcing our exceptional e-tutoring services, we called it. The poster is on our Facebook page, Writing Center-LAU. And I think we had like a preliminary learning experience before the Corona outbreak for the existing, emergency in the country. In that period of time, from October to March, we had to resort to e-tutoring only. The WC online feature was not upgraded then. So we simply responded to written pieces, and we tried to maintain the philosophy of the center throughout. So we responded using comments, highlighted common errors, had a final remark, asked so many questions, trying to emulate a face-to-face session. Then with the Corona outbreak, we had to resort to something else. And at the time, I got an email from the company, my WC Online, and I thought, thank God they came up with this new feature with a video audio option and the chat box on the side with the whiteboard. We couldn't wait for an administrative decision. So what I did was I shared the information with the assistant director, and then I said, let's make an appointment ourselves. Let's have one and try it. So I made an appointment with her and we tested the technology of my WC Online, and it worked well. However, once we adopted it, it proved that it had some drawbacks as we were going along, either due to internet connection problems. Some people had the ability to have the audio feature only, but not the video. And now I learned after all this period of time and the use of this in the US and in the MENA region. For instance, they upgraded the video option, and the window, the video window is now bigger. So to go back to Sahar's idea, the social aspect of having the online session very much similar to the face-to-face one is much needed. So many other times we had to resort to a WhatsApp call. In some cases, when there was a group session, we had to resort to Zoom. WebEx was another option because LAU has subscribed to WebEx, so we were able to do that. Nevertheless, we learned a lot along the way. I had an end of semester meeting with the tutors, and they were comparing the e-tutoring we had during the revolution and the one we kept after that with the Corona and the online sessions. And we agreed that we preferred the online sessions when possible, of course. We made sure the e-tutoring was only for specific cases when online couldn't work, or when people had theses, for example, and they wanted to divide the work into a number of sessions. There were a number of challenges, but like right now, the summer session, which will end tomorrow, was completely online, and I learned we had so far 90 appointments in the summer when we used to have 50 in the summer. So there was not only a establishment of the same numbers, there was an increase. And personally, I felt students needed that. With the shift to online learning, they needed more support on many levels, like moral support, psychological support. At times, I felt the tutee did not really need me as a tutor as much as I'm on the right track, could not talk to my professor, wanted that second assurance from the center. From the tutor side, I could feel their feel of worthiness as well. Like I jotted down few quotes from them. One said, online tutoring kept my own sanity. I mean, it helped the tutors as well, made me feel needed, which was uplifting during these challenging times. One said, I felt more useful in online tutoring than in online teaching, which I felt was interesting. Those who had this dual role of an instructor and a tutor in the center. I felt I was closer as a director to the group of tutors. We were always chatting. Anytime we faced problems, we spoke to one another via WhatsApp. We made sure every tutee managed to get what they needed, but all the time with the philosophy of the center kept untouched as much as possible. The way we managed the announcements, we also created a poster for the corona. I think I just the one on the Facebook page. Never fear, online tutoring is here. Until the corona curfew is over, the Writing Center will be offering online tutoring services. So we used visuals, we used email to explain the protocol. We also had it on the WC online appointment page. But I really like the idea of Sahar now because it saves time having the link embedded in the appointment for Zoom, for instance, whenever needed. We so many times spent or wasted time just connecting rather than the session itself, so had to make up for those particular cases. What else did I want to tell you? In terms of statistics, interestingly, in the spring, during the corona period, with both e-tutoring and online tutoring available, we had like 521 appointments in Beirut and around 193 in Byblos, which was somehow reassuring and like a message to us that we are an entity. It's called student support. It was very much supporting of those shifting to online learning during these trying times. So it was reinforcing for us to feel this way. Our center is 10 years old. It was going to celebrate its 10th anniversary in a big event. But with the social distancing, we had to do it online, also on our Facebook page, on our Instagram page. So what we had planned, we tried to emulate and make it online. I was going to invite all veteran tutors to join the ceremony, but then I had tutor tales shared on our Facebook page, trying to give some facts about the history of the center, also shared online. I think we somehow succeeded, but I think there are still challenges with online tutoring when you compare it to face-to-face. So it's like our target is to make it the closest possible to face-to-face tutoring without any damage to what we believe in. But definitely everyone misses that space. And the social aspect of tutoring in the center is very much missed. There's a task force now studying how we're going to go back, if we're going to go back to campus in the fall. We still don't know how it's going to be like. We might have to have plexi trays, plexi separators between the tutor and the tutee, and a maximum of 2 sessions in 1 hour with distance between those 2 appointments. And definitely we are considering keeping online tutoring, but with maybe modifications to the protocols and to the limits, or to the actual components of whether to accept or not to accept particular demands. I mean, you get all sorts of demands in exceptional times. So we need to draw the line somewhere. But I'm hopeful I can do what Lizzie has done with videos. I think that's going to be helpful. Many did not know how to, even though we had sent an email explaining the way it should be done. So there are lessons learned, and I'm hoping that we can do something in the fall to learn from all this experience.
Yeah, thanks, Paula. And I think that the big takeaway from your institution is that there really is no excuse for a lot of other institutions for not doing it, because you had to overcome challenges from political to economic to general power to all kinds of access issues, and you still managed to be very successful in the practice that you were doing.
And if I may add, we managed to have an online workshop going on upon the request of one faculty member on the APA 7th edition, like an overview. We had a school project going on that had to be interrupted. I mean, we had 2 sessions for that school. We owed them 2 more. There was a suggestion to go online, and now we went, Hal and I recently went with our masks on, and the attendees were also far away from one another. But now with the escalation of cases, I don't think we're going to do it face-to-face anymore. The situation is worse now in Beirut, in Lebanon, in terms of corona cases.
Well, thank you very much, though, Paula, for sharing. And I want to save some time because I know there are some people that have a few questions for us. And I just want to really briefly say that we are planning a series of webinars that'll be more focused on specific things, from synchronistic to asynchronistic to tutor training and a few other ideas. And so there's a quick feedback survey that should come up after the session has ended. But in the meantime, I saw one a big thumbs up. And so I think as people have questions, just go ahead and ask them, and I'll unmute you. And then you can ask away, and we can just probably, any of the board who wants to answer them, or anyone else who has something to say about it can jump right in. Because we have about 8 or 10 minutes left for questions. Of course, if there are no questions, you know, we can chat a little bit about some of the other issues that popped up, particularly around issues of access. And I don't know if any of the other board members have a few things they'd like to say. I heard a lot of different options that were raised. in terms of providing options for students for different types of sessions. Does anyone want to speak a little bit to the types of options in just a bit more detail about how that worked and what they were doing? Yeah, thanks, Ken. Go ahead.
I mean, this is something that we are acutely aware of here at NYU Abu Dhabi in terms of how can students continue their education, but also how can they take advantage of what we have to offer in the Writing Center. And some of that is, and I know we'll have another conversation about this, about sort of synchronous or asynchronous teaching, but part of that is sort of maybe having to move away from the face-to-face conversation about a piece of writing. And I think, like Paula, I'm a little reluctant to do that because I don't want the Writing Center to be seen as an editing service or as just sort of a proofreading business. But I think for some students, we might have to actually do that. In terms of saying, okay, so we're going to work in a Google Doc, or you sending me a Word document and I'm sending it back to you, and then we email back and forth. Because simply that the student might not have access to the internet in the way that Zoom requires, and it requires a lot of internet, right? So, I mean, I think hitherto, which I never allow my students to say in their papers, but you know, I've not allowed that. But I think I have to change that that philosophy, just in terms of figuring out how can we actually work with the students that we have and where they are. When they're on campus, it's a different ball game, but this next semester, that's going to be different. Did that answer your question, Ryan?
Yeah, it did, and I think Amy wanted to respond. Amy Zanger.
Hi everybody. This is so great to see everyone. I'm so happy to see you. And congratulations to LAU Writing Center. My neighbors, I haven't seen you for ages.
Oh yeah,
anyway, I just wanted to say a couple things about, I mean, so many of the things that people have said just echo our experiences, so I don't want to go over it, but I noticed we had a few students who were very reliant on the Writing Center because of maybe learning, you know, special learning problems like dyslexia or something like that, and they really suffered. I noticed that they kind of just couldn't, they often had recurring appointments and they sort of just dropped away when everything moved online. And I felt very worried about that. So that was, you know, Lizzie mentioned, like, who are we leaving out? And that really came to my mind immediately. But the other thing I wanted to mention is that during the summer, not me, but the tutors who were working in the Writing Center over the summer had like a series of sort of what they called write-ins, where it was like a 1-hour session where people could just sign up for a weekly meeting. And it was a group, you know, through WebEx, a group meeting. And they did things like just write together, or they had, you know, they talked about more sort of process-oriented things. And they had other workshops that were more sort of technical for thesis writers. But this was very helpful for people, sort of addressing the more logistical and emotional dimensions of writing under these circumstances, especially for thesis writers. So those things worked well, even though they didn't have a huge, you know, number of participants, but I think we'll just continue with that. So that was a nice kind of addition to what we offer. Thanks.
Can I just jump in here briefly and say that I love this idea, and it's something that we've been doing at NYU Abu Dhabi for a while now. It's the Summer Scholars Program. and it's the distance learning program that we have over the summer. And this year we have 50 students signed up who want to sort of work on some writing project over the course of the summer, and they're paired with a writing instructor, and in this case with me. I have 5 of them this year. But it's exactly this, right? It's not about us sort of grading their writing. It's about the process that they're engaging in, and for them to learn that the writing process is their own, right? And that they own that and they can take control of it, but that they also need to have some kind of check-ins or guidelines. So I love this idea. Thank you. Sorry.
Thanks. Thank you, Ken. I wanted to just respond to something Amy Zenger just mentioned about those students that were previously reliant on the Writing Center. We at the Center for Writing in English at King Saud actually had the opposite case. We had students that were not as reliant as on the Writing Center that became so after we moved on to the online mode of operation. And that was really, really interesting. We had one student in particular where we were getting comments from all the different consultants saying, we're booked 5 days in a row with the same person. And we had to do something about and think on how we could support her without taking up all the open slots and allowing other people to also have an opportunity to be supported. And it was very interesting because students felt a loss of control, and they felt that without being able to walk into their professor's office and without being able to have a more direct sort of way of connecting with their professors, that perhaps that one way of working on that loss of control was through the Writing Center. At least they could, you know, go back and check and recheck with all the different assignments with different consultants. So, you know, this shift brought out a really, really interesting realities. The Writing Center was a way of students to find someone they can talk to, especially since they were synchronous. So they had interaction that they were lacking in all their other classes because they were one of many in those classes, but here it was one-on-one. So that was really, really interesting. And I saw a question here in the chat, Ryan, if you don't mind, if I could just, you know, respond to it. Something about giving out numbers and if that was ethical. I think this situation, one thing we learned from this experience is that we have to be very flexible. You know, flexibility is key, and we come from a tradition where everything is written down and known and declared and out there on our website and policies. We found that we had to shift out from all of that and respond to students' needs right there on the spot. And we would have like quick questions come to me on my WhatsApp from different consultants. Can I do this? Can I do that? And honestly, in so many times, I really did not know. I would just respond by saying, what do you think? I mean, we were kind of making up policies right there on the spot. But I'll tell you what we realized towards the end. When we did share our numbers, students used them very responsibly. And when we figured out a way that would not require us to share our numbers, then they basically remained in that new method. And basically with every change we made, we announced to all, and then tried that out. And then maybe if we made a change, we did again announce to all that revision in policy. And that was basically how we've been managing that situation.
Thanks very much, Maimouna. I think it does go to, and I'm just seeing in the chat now, they're talking a little bit about expectations and standards, and there's a very, I think, reasonable concern that once you start giving out your personal information that there might be an expectation that you're reachable at any time and that you're always kind of on. I think all of us as educators have felt that with our students because they don't, particularly during Ramadan, I think my students would wake up about the time I was going to bed. And so there's a lot of communication happening at opposite ends of the clock. But I do think that's the most important thing. Like we always talk about like socio-pragmatic discourses in the center and how to behave in the space, how to talk in the space. And now we just have a new normal where we need to set those expectations with students going in. And I think clear reminders and also being flexible enough to know that we have to sometimes move those goalposts and benchmarks in different ways based on particular needs of sometimes an individual student or the larger like student context. But I think we're in a really tough spot to say, here's our policy, here's what it's going to be for the next 3 months. I think it requires a lot of flexibility.
Ryan,
Yep.
in the, I know I want to be very time sensitive and respectful of everybody's time. So I'm going to launch our little poll.
Perfect, thank you.
Will appear in your window, and it's 3 very, very short questions that you get to reply to. Hope everybody can see it, and it's just, you just need to press your preference. This will help us get ready for our next session.
Yeah, and just on behalf of all of us, I want to thank everyone for taking some time out of their day to meet and share some of your ideas and questions and concerns. And I think it's pretty remarkable that we got people from, people interested from South Africa to China to Lebanon to Oman, all over the place. And so I find that really just affirming and exciting to be a part of. So thank you to all of you. And we'll continue to be offering these seminars, hopefully in the first week of August after Eid al-Adha. We'll finalize some dates and get those out to you so you can put them on your calendar, and hopefully you'll like to join us again.
All right, so I'm sharing the polling results. You can see, we will use this information to schedule our next meeting. But thank you so much for filling this out. Right, one last final reminder. I just wanted to let you know that this session was recorded, and if you wanted to share it with your staff or your tutors, it will eventually be available on our website. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thanks so much. And Sahar, if you want to put some music on and play us out for the next few minutes while people finish the poll, and then we'll close the meeting in about 2 or 3 minutes. Thank you very much, everyone.